So let's talk about some of the races you're going to run into on Pandaria. First off, we have the Jinyu. The Jinyu is a race of fish-like creatures. They kind of looked at as the wise men on Pandaria. They've been known to take their staff, stick it in the river, and they can hear what the land is saying. It's literally talking to them. You're going to see them across a wide number of zones. They're definitely something that's going to play into your story the whole way through. Here's a concept piece of what they look like. Next up, we've got the Hozu. The Hozu are a monkey-like race. They stand up on their hind legs. They can walk around. They've been known to be really mischievous. They play tons of pranks on the local Pandaren. It's something that's been indigenous to the continent for a long time. And just like the Hozu, they play through in a lot of zones throughout the whole place. You're going to see them in dungeons as well as the zones outside. Here's a look at what they look like. Concept piece. Next up, we've got the Vermin. The Vermin are our take on, we really wanted to do a new kobold. When you look at the kobold, it's a classic creature. Whenever you see them, you always want to take them out. You can fight them in droves. They're not too strong, so you can fight a bunch of them at one time, like a little bit of a nuisance. Here's a look at these guys. We saw this concept art, and we were like, we need to build that right now. And he needs whatever this crazy knife, fork, weapon thing going on. But the Pandaren have lots of farmland, and these are the kind of guys that they've dug tunnels under the farmland, and they're sucking the vegetables down underneath into their tunnels from below. So that's part of the storyline and the stuff you're going to get with these guys. Now, next up, we have the Mantid. This is one of our killer enemy races. We're going to have whole raids based around the Mantid, dungeons. They really play a big role in the kind of the overarching story. They're an insect race that's been on the island for millennia. They've lived next to the Pandaren this whole time, but they've kind of been separated from the rest of the continent by a giant wall. And as you're going to find out over the story of the expansion, they're starting to go a little crazy, and they're coming through the wall in places, and you're going to have to end up dealing with that. So here's a look at them. Now, different than our other insect races that we've had before, like Silithid, these are sentient creatures. Like, they're going to be able to dress themselves. They have their own houses. They have looks. They're not a hive mind like you would get with the Silithid. They're more of a creature that you can expect to be intelligent and use weapons. So we really wanted to play up a different aspect on them.
What language do they speak?
Next up, we've got the Mogu. The Mogu are another ancient race. The Mogu were actually the original race on the island of Pandaria. They were the first race before the Pandaren overthrew them over 12,000 years ago and took the island for themselves. And what's happening now is the Mogu want it back. And so that's going to play another big part of this storyline, is you're going to see them in raids, you're going to see them in dungeons. We really wanted to have a lot of villains for players to fight. Like Chris mentioned, we don't necessarily always have to have one big bad guy that's causing all the badness in the expansion. We kind of want to spread it out and have a number of things that players are dealing with. Here's a look at these guys. So you can see they're kind of big and hulking ogre-like race. And finally, we've got the Shah. The Shah is really unique. What it is it's the manifestation of negative energy on Pandaria. So if you imagine whenever anything bad, someone gets killed, a fight happens, something like that on the island, any sort of battle, essentially what's happening with the Alliance and Horde once they get here releases Shah energy into the land. It's kind of a shadow form creature. You're going to see it all over the place. Here's a look at what we're thinking, how these guys can feel. Super aggressive, something you definitely want to take out. You could fight this guy as a raid boss for sure. So that's just a quick look at some of the stuff you can expect from the creatures. Next up, we're going to hit the first zone, the Jade Forest. This is where Alliance and Horde are going to be landing. So this naval battle we've talked about that happened off the coast, the Horde end up washing up on the north side. The Alliance ends up washing up on the south side of the zone. So historically, over the past couple expansions, we've had separate start zones where you've been able to come in and choose, like, I want to go to Kashir, do I want to go to Hyjal, do I want to go to Howling Fjord, or do I want to go to Borean Tundra? So here we're going to do one unified start zone, and Alliance and Horde are going to kind of meet up in the middle. So definitely a little bit of a different vibe. The look is very, very unique. It's these tall stone spires and filled with rainforests in the valleys. But on the top of these stone spires, you've got Pandaren buildings, so they create these awesome vistas and really cool landscapes. It's a different look from any WoW zone we've done before. It's definitely going to be your first look at the Hozu and the Jinyu. So you're going to meet these races and actually try to befriend them. The Alliance tries to take the Hozu, while the Horde will try to become friendly with the Jinyu and end up turning them against each other. And this is what ends up causing so much negative energy to be released in the zone, and that's part of the storyline that you're going to play through. This, of course, releases more Sha, and this is super bad. This is why when you get there originally, Pandaren aren't necessarily big fans of you, because what are you doing? You've come into this pristine land, and you just started to tear it apart. We also have a dungeon in this zone, the Temple of the Jade Serpent. We'll be talking about this dungeon in detail at the Dungeon and Raid panel, but it's definitely going to be, it's going to be your 85 to 86 dungeon when you first get there. This dungeon has been kind of taken over by Sha. It's been caused by you. So the whole goal there is for you to go in and cleanse it, essentially, of what you've done. So you've got to look at the map of the zone here. So you can see all those kind of brown dots are the spires throughout the zone. So it's filled with valleys all across. Here's a look at some concept art. Just looks so great. It's got that super unique vibe. Another look at some of the valleys with those spires. And then we've got a video. I'll show you guys. That's the Jade Forest. Now, once you finish the Jade Forest, you'll be heading on to the Valley of the Four Winds. That's our second zone. This zone is huge. It's kind of broken up in two sections. It's got a north side and a south side. The whole northern side of the zone is Pandaren farmlands, while the whole south side of the zone is essentially a coastal jungle. And going along with our theme of kind of having less linear quest content, when you come in here, you're going to be able to choose to go south right at the beginning or go to the north side. Now, obviously, you can come back and do either side later. We want to make sure people feel like they have a choice and they're not being... It's one thing we wanted to kind of hit on a little bit, is not having our quest flow feel so linear. So every time you do a zone, you do it in the exact same way. As we said, another thing that goes along here is that we've got a dungeon. So it's one thing we're trying to do a little different, is make sure that the dungeons feel like they fit in each zone. So when I say that, I mean that not just that it fits the story like it should be there, but more that it actually exists in the world. So when you go to Valley of the Four Winds and the Storm Stout Brewery is there, you're actually going to see this giant Storm Stout Brewery building. It's something we haven't been able to do a lot of. Sometimes we end up with just a portal, and the portal takes you into the dungeon, but you never see where that dungeon is in the world. So that's a big thing we've tried to do with these zones, is make sure that our dungeons really have a presence, like they're definitely there. Your first interaction with the Mantid is going to be here in the Valley of the Four Winds. This is one of the zones that borders the wall I was talking about a little earlier, and one of the first breaches in the wall by the Mantid have happened here. And they're attacking a Pandaren village, and you're going to come in and have to figure this out and deal with that through the quest lines. So here's a look at the map. So you can kind of see that top part of the zone. On the north side of the river is all the farmland, and then the southern side is all the coastal jungle. Here's a look at some concepts. So this is so when we were trying to think about what Pandaren farmland would be, we didn't want it to feel anything like the farmland you've seen in WoW, like you see in Westfall or you've seen in other zones where we do human farmlands. We wanted to feel different and have that vibe. So here we've got those tiered rice paddies. This is a side cutaway view of the zone, so you can kind of see how it starts and then teeters all the way down to the coastal jungle down on the edge. And here's a video. See what it looks like. So that's Valley of the Four Winds. So next up, Greg's going to come up and talk to you guys a little about some of the new features you'll be seeing in the expansion.